Do you feel it right now? That hollow ache in your chest that follows you everywhere? That bone-deep exhaustion that sleep can't touch? That suffocating sense that everyone around you is living a life you can't seem to access? What if I told you that everything you've been carrying in secret every midnight prayer whispered through tears, every moment you've felt invisible in a crowded room, every time you've wondered if God has forgotten your name, what if all of it has been leading to this exact moment? This is not just a video. This is a trumpet blast across dimensions. Right now, as you're listening to these words, there are forces in the heavenly realm watching, not observing, watching, because you, beloved soul, are standing at the edge of something so sacred, so urgent, that the very angels are holding their breath. You have one day. That's it. One more divine breath before the door closes. Listen to me carefully. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart, Jeremiah 1-5. This isn't poetry. This is your spiritual DNA. And right now, heaven is asking the question that will echo through eternity. Will you finally step into who you were created to be? The restlessness you feel, the sense that you're living beneath your calling, the way opportunities slip through your fingers like sand. That's not failure. That's divine protection keeping you from settling for less than your destiny. But here's what will shatter everything you thought you knew. You are part of the chosen remnant, not because you're perfect, but because you're willing. And in this hour, this sacred, trembling hour, the Most High is separating those who will rise from those who will remain asleep. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Ecclesiastes 3:11, that ache you carry, that's eternity calling your name. The spiritual atmosphere around you is shifting right now. This message found you because heaven guided you here. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because the window of divine opportunity that has been held open for you is about to close. If this message hits your spirit like thunder, if something deep inside you is trembling with recognition, type "I'm here" in the comments. God is watching who shows up. And to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks, your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Stay with me. What I'm about to reveal will explain why your life has felt like a battlefield and why victory was always guaranteed. Have you ever wondered why you've always felt like a stranger in your own life? Why, even in rooms full of people who love you, there's this invisible wall that keeps you separated, watching from the outside? Why, no matter how hard you try to fit in, something deep inside you refuses to settle for ordinary? Listen to me closely, because what I'm about to tell you will explain the ache that's lived in your chest since you were a child. You were born different, not broken, not flawed, different. And that difference has been your burden and your blessing your entire life. Think back to when you were young. Remember those moments when you'd stare out your bedroom window at night, feeling this overwhelming sense that you belonged somewhere else? Remember how you could sense things others couldn't see, the sadness behind someone's smile, the heaviness in a room after an argument, the way certain places just felt wrong. Your family called it sensitivity, teachers called it daydreaming, friends called it weird, but heaven called it discernment. You keep track of all my sorrows, you have collected all my tears in your bottle, you have recorded each one in your book. That's Psalm 56:8. And it's not just beautiful poetry, it's God's promise that every moment of your differentness, every tear you've cried in secret, every night you've felt alone in a world that doesn't understand you, He's been there, collecting, recording, remembering. You see, most people walk through life asleep. They follow the patterns, chase the dreams the world tells them to chase, find their identity in jobs and relationships and possessions. But not you. You've always felt this nagging sense that there's something more, something deeper, something calling your name from beyond the veil of ordinary existence. That's because you were born with a hidden map etched into your soul. You weren't lost, you were encoded. Before your first breath, before your parents even knew your name, God looked across the timeline of eternity and said, "This one, this soul will carry something sacred. This heart will bear witness to mysteries others cannot see. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Jeremiah 1-5 isn't just a verse about ancient prophets, it's your spiritual birth certificate. But here's where it gets painful, doesn't it? Because being chosen doesn't feel like a blessing when you're living it. It feels like exile. You've spent decades wondering why relationships feel so complicated for you. Why you give so much and receive so little in return. Why people are drawn to your warmth but then pull away when they sense the depth of who you really are. Why you can love someone completely and still feel fundamentally alone with them. The truth is crushing and beautiful at the same time. You were never meant to find your home in this world. You were meant to be a bridge between this realm and the next. This is why you've felt homeless in your own life. This is why success never quite satisfies. This is why even your victories feel hollow. This is why you lie awake at 3 a.m. with this ache in your chest that has no name and no cure, because you're carrying eternity in a mortal frame. Do you remember the dreams? Not the sleeping kind, the waking visions that would hit you when you were driving down a familiar street or washing dishes or sitting in church. Suddenly you'd see something, a glimpse of who you could become, what you could accomplish, the lives you could touch. And for just a moment, everything made sense. Then reality would crash back in, bills to pay, people to please, expectations to meet, and you'd push those visions down, call them fantasy, convince yourself to be practical. But those weren't fantasies, those were previews. Heaven was showing you the original blueprint for your life, the one written before time began, the one that's been waiting for you to remember who you really are. The enemy of your soul has worked overtime to convince you that your sensitivity is weakness, that your depth is dysfunction, that your spiritual hunger is just religious obsession. He's used your own family, your closest friends, even pastors and counselors to tell you to just be normal, to stop expecting so much, to lower your standards and accept less. Because he knows what God knows. You're dangerous when you're awake. You carry something that can shift atmospheres, heal generational wounds, break chains that have bound families for decades. Your very presence in a room changes the spiritual temperature. People either feel deeply peaceful around you or deeply uncomfortable. There's rarely any middle ground. That's not your imagination. That's your anointing. The loneliness you've endured, the misunderstanding, the way people have used your kindness and taken advantage of your heart, none of it was wasted. Every betrayal refined your discernment. Every rejection strengthened your resolve. Every night you cried yourself to sleep, heaven was preparing you for this moment. This moment when you finally understand that you weren't born to fit in. You were born to stand out. You weren't created to follow the crowd. You were destined to lead them home. But here's the question that will determine your destiny. Now that you know the truth about who you are, what are you going to do with it? Drop a comment with "I remember" if this awakening has followed you your whole life. Because everything I've just told you about your past is about to collide with a supernatural invitation for your future. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. You weren't mindlessly scrolling when something made you stop. No, beloved. You were guided here by invisible threads that have been weaving through your life for decades. Think back to that moment in the hospital room when the doctors said there was nothing more they could do. Remember how you felt a presence in that sterile, fluorescent-lit space? That wasn't your imagination. That was the first thread. Or maybe it was that quiet Tuesday morning when you woke up at 3 a.m. with tears streaming down your face, and you didn't even know why. You whispered into the darkness, "God, are you there?" And something deeper than sound whispered back. Second thread. What about that night when everything fell apart? When the phone call came that changed everything? When you stood in your kitchen at 2 in the morning, completely shattered, and somehow, you didn't break. You should have. Any reasonable person would have. But you didn't, because there were hands you couldn't see holding you together. Third thread. Every single moment of inexplicable strength. Every time help showed up exactly when you needed it most. Every door that closed just before you walked through, it saving you from a path that would have destroyed you. Every person who walked away just when you thought you needed them most, only to realize later that their leaving was the greatest gift they could have given you. Those weren't coincidences. Those were divine fingerprints. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose, Romans 8:28. Not some things, all things, even the things that nearly killed you, even the betrayals that left you questioning your worth, even the silence when you screamed for answers. You want to know why your life has felt different? Why you've carried burdens that would crush others? Why you've survived things that have no earthly explanation? Because you're not from here. But our citizenship is in heaven, Philippians 3:20. You've always felt like a stranger in this world because this world was never meant to be your home. You're an ambassador, a representative of a higher kingdom planted in hostile territory. And right now, as I speak these words, there are beings in the spiritual realm who have been watching your journey unfold, not judging, watching, waiting for this exact moment when you would finally understand why your path has been so unique, so challenging, so purposeful. These watchers have been documenting every tear, every prayer, every moment when you chose love over bitterness, faith over fear, hope over despair. They've been waiting for heaven's signal to activate the next phase of your assignment. But here's what will absolutely shatter your understanding of everything. You think you chose to watch this message. You think you made the decision to listen. But the truth is, you were summoned, called, drawn by forces beyond your comprehension to this sacred moment in time. 3 nights ago, heaven issued a decree. A divine bulletin went out across the spiritual realm. Find them. All of them. The ones who've been waiting. The ones who've been faithful in the darkness. The ones who've held on when holding on made no sense. Bring them to this moment. That restlessness you felt lately, that inexplicable sense that something is about to shift, that's not anxiety, that's anticipation. Your spirit recognizing the sound of approaching destiny. Nothing was coincidence. Not your pain, not your survival, not the way this message found you exactly when your heart was ready to receive it. You were led precisely here. Look at your hands right now. Look at them. Those hands have been through fire and didn't burn. Those hands have built things from nothing. Those hands have comforted the broken and blessed the cursed. Do you think that's random? Do you think that's accident? Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart, Jeremiah 1-5. Set apart, not set aside. Set apart, separated from the ordinary for something extraordinary. Every person who didn't understand you was actually protecting your calling. Every door that closed was heaven redirecting your steps. Every season of isolation was preparation for influence. Every moment of suffering was building your capacity to carry glory. You've been asking God, why me? Why this path? Why so much weight? But you've been asking the wrong question. The question isn't, why me? The question is, What am I carrying that requires this level of preparation? And here's the truth that's going to change everything. You're not just here to be healed, you're here to be activated. The Watchers aren't just observing anymore. They're waiting for your permission to begin the work they've been assigned to do through you. Your pain had a purpose. Your survival has a meaning. Your presence here, in this moment, listening to these words, this is where your true story begins. If something deep in your gut says this is not just a coincidence, say it out loud. I'm not crazy, I'm called. Because what I'm about to reveal next will explain why heaven has been protecting you so fiercely and why the enemy has been fighting you so hard. You want to know why your life has felt like walking through a minefield while others seem to skip through meadows. You want to understand why every step forward feels like you're pushing against invisible forces. Why doors slam shut just as you reach for the handle. Why people turn cold without explanation. Why your own family sometimes looks at you like you're speaking a foreign language. Here's the truth that will stop your heart. You weren't born into a normal life. You were born into a war zone. From the moment you drew your first breath, there were forces in the spiritual realm that recognized what you carried, not what you would become, what you already were. Deep in your DNA, written in the very fiber of your being, was a code that made hell itself nervous. Think back to your childhood. Really think. Was there always something different? Were you the one who felt things too deeply? The one who asked questions that made adults uncomfortable? Did you have dreams that felt more real than your waking hours? Did you sense things in rooms before anyone spoke? That wasn't imagination, beloved. That was divine frequency. But here's what will shatter everything you thought you knew about your story. The enemy doesn't chase empty vessels. He smelled oil on you since childhood. Samuel's oil, David's oil, the anointing that transforms shepherds into kings. Satan himself has been obsessed with your soul for decades. You think those midnight panic attacks were random? You think that crippling depression in your 20s just happened? You think those relationships that destroyed you, those betrayals that nearly killed your faith, those financial disasters that came out of nowhere, you think that was all coincidence? Wake up, chosen one. You've been hunted. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. Isaiah 54:17. Not a promise for the future. A declaration of what's already true. Every weapon has failed. Every scheme has backfired. Every trap set for your destruction became a stepping stone to your destiny. Look at your life. Really look. You should have been destroyed a dozen times over. But you're still here, still breathing, still believing, still hoping when hope makes no logical sense. That's not luck. That's divine protection over a vessel hell cannot afford to see awakened. Do you remember that night in the hospital room when you thought it was over? The doctor's face, the machines, the way time seemed to stop? Something intervened. Not modern medicine, something else. Something that breathed life back into lungs that had given up. Do you remember that morning when you stood at the edge, literally or figuratively, when ending? It all seemed like the only escape from the pain. But something whispered, something pulled you back. Something reminded you that your story wasn't finished. Those weren't moments of chance. Those were divine fingerprints on your timeline. The enemy of your soul has been playing the long game. He knew that if you ever fully awakened to who you are, if you ever stepped into the fullness of your calling, entire strongholds would crumble. Generational curses would snap. People would be set free just by being in your presence. So he sent everything. Addiction to numb your sensitivity, depression to cloud your vision, anxiety to keep you paralyzed, toxic relationships to drain your energy, financial pressure to keep you distracted, health crises to break your will. But every single time, something inside you refused to stay down. That something is the indestructible seed of the Most High, the part of you that hell cannot touch, cannot corrupt, cannot destroy. The core of your being that remains pure no matter what has tried to defile it. Your pain was prophetic resistance. Every tear you cried was intercession for a future you couldn't yet see. Every time you chose to keep going when quitting would have been easier, you were writing victory into the spiritual realm. The trauma that nearly broke you, it was supposed to disqualify you. Instead, it qualified you to minister to the broken. The betrayal that shattered your trust, it was meant to make you cynical. Instead, it gave you discernment that can spot deception from miles away. The loneliness that felt like death, it was designed to make you desperate for any connection. Instead, it drove you deeper into intimacy with the one who never leaves. Hell miscalculated. Every attack became armor. Every wound became wisdom. Every setback became a setup for something greater. But here's what's happening right now, in this very moment. The hunting season is ending. The protection phase is shifting. You're no longer the prey hiding in the shadows. You're about to become the lion that makes the enemy flee. This message found you because the Most High is ready to unveil what He's been protecting all these years. The gifts that were hidden for your safety are about to be revealed. The authority that was held back until the right time is about to be released. Comment: they tried, but I'm still here. If the enemy tried to take you out, but God had other plans. Because what I'm about to tell you next will explain why every battle you've fought, every tear you've shed, every dark night you've endured was actually preparing you for the most important assignment of your life. The question is, are you ready to discover what you've been carrying all along? You know what haunts me most about the letters I receive? It's not the desperate pleas for breakthrough. It's not even the cries for healing. It's the shame. The raw, bleeding shame in every line where someone writes, "I must have done something wrong. God has been silent for so long." Dear one, what if I told you that silence was never abandonment? What if the very thing that's been breaking your heart was actually saving your life? Sit with that for a moment. Let it settle into the wounded places of your soul. For 37 years, you've been waiting. 37 years of unanswered prayers, of watching others walk into their promises while you remained in the shadows. 37 years of wondering if you missed your moment, if you said the wrong thing, if God simply forgot about you. But here's what will shatter every lie you've believed about that silence. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Psalm 1:39-16. Every single day, written before time began, including the silent ones, especially the silent ones. You see, chosen one, there's something the enemy has been hiding from you about divine silence. It's not punishment, it's protection. It's not absence, it's preparation. God doesn't go quiet because He's forgotten you. He goes quiet because He's positioning you. Think about this. When a surgeon operates, the patient is unconscious, not because the surgeon doesn't care, but because consciousness during the procedure would be unbearable. What if your silence has been God's anesthesia while He performed surgery on your destiny? What if every closed door wasn't rejection, but redirection away from destruction you couldn't see? What if every delayed answer wasn't God saying no, but God saying not yet? Because what I have planned will require a stronger version of you. I need you to hear this with every fiber of your being. The silence was a setup. While you were hidden in that valley, crying out to seemingly empty skies, heaven was busy. Angels were moving pieces on a chessboard you couldn't see. Enemies that would have destroyed you in year 10 were being removed in year 15. Doors that would have led to your ruin were being sealed shut, while better doors were being constructed. You think Joseph felt abandoned during those 13 years between the dream and the palace? 13 years of slavery, false accusations, forgotten promises. But here's what Joseph didn't know. Pharaoh's previous advisor had to fall before Joseph could rise. The famine had to be prophesied before Joseph's gift could be needed. The timing had to be perfect, not just for Joseph's elevation, but for an entire nation's survival. Your silence has been strategic. Every year you spent wondering if God was still there. He was systematically removing every obstacle between you and your calling. Every season you felt forgotten, He was preparing rooms in your future that weren't ready yet. Every time you almost gave up, He was orchestrating circumstances that required exactly the person you were becoming through the waiting. But here's where this gets personal, devastatingly, beautifully personal. That betrayal that nearly destroyed you, it had to happen to remove someone who would have sabotaged your destiny. That job you lost, that felt like the end of the world, it was closing one chapter so a better story could begin. That relationship that crumbled despite your prayers, it was God's protection, not God's punishment. You weren't being punished in the silence. You were being prepared, not just for blessing, but for the weight of what you're called to carry. And the pain you've endured, it wasn't random suffering, it was intentional forging. Gold doesn't complain about the fire because gold doesn't have consciousness, but you do. And every moment you chose trust over bitterness, every day you got up despite the ache, every prayer you whispered through tears, that was character being hammered into unbreakable strength. The person who enters their promise without the preparation of silence is dangerous. They haven't learned dependence on God. They haven't developed spiritual muscle. They haven't been emptied of self-reliance enough to handle supernatural favor. But you've been hollowed out by the silence until you became a vessel that could hold glory. Here's what I need you to understand. Your silence is ending not because you've suffered long enough, but because you've been shaped thoroughly enough. The person you were 5 years ago couldn't handle what's coming, but the person you've become through the fire, you're ready. And here's the part that will make you weep. God wasn't just preparing you during the silence, He was preparing others to receive what you'll carry. That ministry you're about to step into, the people who need your specific story weren't ready 5 years ago. That business idea that's been burning in your heart, the market wasn't prepared. That relationship you're about to enter, they were being prepared too. Divine timing isn't just about you being ready, it's about everything being ready. The silence was a setup, not for your destruction, but for your demonstration, not for your defeat, but for your divine debut. You've been hidden so that when you emerge, there will be no question that God's hand is upon you. If you've been in that silence, if you recognize your story in these words, whisper in the comments. He was shaping me, because what felt like delay was design. He wasn't punishing you, He was hiding you from destruction. But now the silence is breaking, and what's about to emerge from your hidden place will leave the world speechless. Are you ready to step out of the silence and into the supernatural? You think you're alone right now, don't you? Sitting there listening to these words, believing that this is just you and a screen. But I need to shatter that illusion immediately, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you see this very moment forever. There are beings in this room with you, right now, as real as the air you're breathing, as present as the blood flowing through your veins. 2 of them, angels of the Most High, assigned specifically to your life, your calling, your destiny. They've been waiting, and waiting, and waiting some more. But here's what will stop your heart. They cannot move until you give them permission. The first angel stands to your right, and in his hands is a scroll. Not just any scroll, your scroll. The original blueprint of everything God intended for your life, before the world told you who you should be. Every dream you buried, every vision you called foolish, every impossible thing you stopped believing for, it's all written there. Your name is on that scroll in the handwriting of heaven itself. The second angel stands to your left, and he carries a sword, not for destruction, but for breakthrough, for cutting through every chain that has held you back, every generational curse that has whispered this is as good as it gets, every spiritual barrier that has kept you playing small when you were created to be mighty. They've been standing there through every disappointment, every betrayal, every night you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if God remembered your name. They watched you shrink when you were meant to expand. They witnessed you apologize for gifts that were supposed to shake nations, and still, they wait. Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? Hebrews 1:14. These aren't decorative beings floating around for show. They are ministering spirits with specific assignments. Your assignment. But heaven operates on a principle that will your understanding of how God works. Heaven will not violate your free will. You want to know why your breakthrough has been delayed? Why doors you prayed would open remain shut? Why the miracle you've been begging for seems to stay just out of reach? It's not because God doesn't love you. It's not because you're not worthy. It's because you haven't given heaven permission to move. Listen to what Jesus said in Revelation 3:20. Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in. Even the King of Kings won't force his way into your life. He stands, he knocks, he waits for you to open the door. But here's the part that should terrify you. There comes a point when the knocking stops. How many times have you felt the stirring, that inner pull towards something greater, that restlessness that said there's more than this? How many times did you feel heaven tugging at your spirit, and you responded with maybe later, or I'm not ready, or let me get my life together first? Each time you delayed, those angels remained in position. Each time you hesitated, they held their ground. But beloved, even divine patience has boundaries. You see, the enemy doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to keep you paralyzed. He doesn't have to make you evil. He just has to make you comfortable with mediocrity. He knows that if he can keep you in perpetual preparation mode, you'll never step into performance mode. And while you've been waiting to feel ready, ready enough, worthy enough, brave enough, people are dying. People who needed the light you carry. People who were supposed to encounter God through your obedience. People whose healing was tied to your willingness to move. Your delay has cost more than just your own breakthrough. It's cost others theirs. But even now, even after all the delays, all the missed moments, all the times you chose comfort over calling, those angels haven't moved. They're still there, still waiting, still believing that this could be the moment you finally say yes. Do you realize what this means? Heaven still believes in you. After everything, after every excuse, after every time you turned away, heaven is still investing in your potential. But here's what should shake you to your core. This window won't stay open forever. There's a divine statute of limitations on opportunity. Ask the 5 foolish virgins who waited too long to prepare their lamps. Ask the rich young ruler who walked away from Jesus because the cost felt too high. Ask anyone who said someday until someday became never. The angels standing beside you right now, they're not just messengers, they're witnesses. They're documenting this moment, recording your response. Because what you decide right now will echo through eternity. Heaven will not move until you do. Your yes is the gate. Not your perfect understanding, not your flawless theology, not your complete readiness. Your ye's, raw, imperfect, terrified if necessary, but authentic. The angels are not waiting for your perfection. They're waiting for your permission. So I'm asking you directly, no more hiding behind spiritual language or religious politeness. Are you going to keep those angels waiting, or are you finally ready to let heaven move in your life? Type yes if you're done waiting. Heaven needs your agreement to activate, because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly what happens the moment those angels receive your permission to move. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you will completely shatter the way you see your calling. You think this journey has been about your healing, your breakthrough, your destiny. But what if I told you that's only the beginning? What if your entire life, every tear, every battle, every moment you felt forgotten was never really about you at all? You are standing at the epicenter of something so vast, so eternal, that your mind can barely comprehend it. Right now, in this very moment, there are people you've never met whose entire futures hang in the balance of your next decision. Their deliverance is tied to your obedience. Their breakthrough is connected to your surrender. Think about this. How many nights have you cried out to God, begging Him to send someone to help your family? How many times have you prayed for a miracle, a sign, a person who would step into your situation and change everything? Well, chosen one, you are that answer. You are someone else's miracle waiting to be released. And who knows, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. Esther didn't know that her willingness to risk everything would save an entire nation. She couldn't see the thousands of families that would live because she said yes. She only saw her fear, her inadequacy, her uncertainty. Sound familiar? Your grandmother prayed for you before you were born. Your great-grandfather whispered your name to heaven in his final breath. Generations of your bloodline have been interceding for this moment, the moment when someone in their lineage would finally break through and become the generational curse breaker they desperately needed. But here's what will knock the breath out of you. It's not just your family watching. Right now, across America, there's a single mother in Detroit working 3 jobs, praying for someone to show her that God still sees her struggle. There's a Vietnam veteran in rural Alabama who hasn't spoken to God in 40 years, but something in his spirit is stirring. There's a teenager in Phoenix who's contemplating ending her life tonight, but she's going to stumble across your story and realize she's not alone. You think you're just choosing whether to step into your calling. You're choosing whether their prayers get answered. Your obedience is someone else's answered prayer. Let that sink in. Every time you've delayed, every time you've said maybe tomorrow, every time you've let fear win, you weren't just robbing yourself. You were keeping someone else's breakthrough in spiritual prison. You are a domino in a line of deliverance. Delay here collapses others. Do you understand the weight of what I'm telling you? This is why the enemy has fought you so hard. This is why the attacks have been so relentless. He doesn't just see what you could become, he sees everyone you could set free. He sees the ripple effect of your yes echoing through time and eternity. Remember Moses? He thought he was just a stammering shepherd, but his obedience delivered 2 million people from slavery. David thought he was just a shepherd boy, but his courage against Goliath shifted the destiny of a nation. They couldn't see the scope. They couldn't grasp the magnitude. They just said yes to what God placed in front of them. But here's where it gets personal. Right now, as you're listening to these words, there's a specific person God has been preparing you to impact. Maybe it's your own child who's watching how you respond to this calling. Maybe it's a co-worker who's been silently observing your faith. Maybe it's a stranger you haven't met yet, who's going to need exactly what you've walked through. Your testimony isn't just your story, it's someone else's hope. Your breakthrough isn't just your victory, it's someone else's proof that God still moves. Your healing isn't just your restoration, it's someone else's evidence that they can make it too. This is why you felt that crushing sense of responsibility lately. This is why the weight has been so heavy. You're not just carrying your own calling, you're carrying the breakthrough of people whose names you don't even know yet. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. The same grace that's been carrying you through your darkest valleys is the exact grace that will flow through you to carry others. The same God who wouldn't let you drown is the same God who's going to use you to throw life preservers to people who are going under. Your pain was not punishment, it was preparation for ministry. Your scars are not marks of shame, they're credentials for service. Your story is not a liability, it's someone else's lifeline. And time is running out. Not because God is impatient, but because people are dying spiritually, emotionally, physically, while you wrestle with whether you're ready. They don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be willing. If you feel this weight pressing down on your spirit right now, if something inside you is trembling with the recognition of this truth, speak it out loud. It's bigger than me. Because it is. Chosen one. It always has been. And that's exactly why God chose you. Not because you're capable of handling it alone, but because you're surrendered enough to let Him handle it through you. But the question that will determine everything is this: will you finally stop making this about your fears and start making it about their freedom? Listen to me, chosen one. I need you to stop what you're doing and really hear what I'm about to say. Because the enemy has been whispering the most seductive lie straight into your ear, and you've been believing it. That lie? Later. Later, when I'm ready. Later, when things calm down. Later, when I feel more prepared. Later, when the timing is perfect. But here's the brutal truth that will shatter your comfort. Later is how the enemy sings lullabies to the called. You see, the adversary doesn't need to destroy you with some dramatic confrontation. He doesn't need to drag you kicking and screaming away from your destiny. All he has to do is convince you that you have unlimited time. All he has to do is make you believe that divine windows stay open forever. Genesis 6:3 should terrify every soul who thinks they can delay indefinitely. My spirit shall not strive with man forever. Did you catch that? Not forever. There's an expiration date on God's patience. There's a time limit on divine opportunity. You think you're being wise by waiting. You think you're being cautious, responsible, careful. But what if you're actually being disobedient? What if your later is nothing more than spiritual procrastination dressed up in religious language? How many people do you think went to bed the night before the flood, planning to get right with God tomorrow? How many residents of Sodom told themselves they'd leave the city next week? How many heard John the Baptist preaching and thought, I'll repent when I'm ready? They all had one thing in common. They believed they had time. But time, beloved, is not yours to control. Matthew 24:36 declares with chilling clarity. But about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. The favor you're soaking in right now has an expiration date. That grace that's been covering your delays, protecting you from the consequences of your hesitation, keeping doors cracked open that should have slammed shut years ago's not guaranteed to last. God's mercy is not a subscription service you can renew at your convenience. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many divine appointments have you already missed because you thought you had tomorrow? How many opportunities has heaven prepared for you that dissolved because you chose comfort over calling? Think about Moses. God called him at the burning bush, and what was his immediate response? Send someone else. Exodus 4:13. Moses tried to negotiate with the Almighty. He tried to delay. And you know what happened? God got angry. Not disappointed. Angry. Because delay in the face of divine calling isn't humility, it's rebellion. You keep waiting for the perfect moment. But what if I told you that your waiting is the very thing preventing the perfect moment from arriving? What if your hesitation is blocking the breakthrough you've been praying for? Here's what happens in the spiritual realm when you say later to God. Heaven interprets it as no. not maybe, not postponed, number. Because in the eternal perspective, later often becomes never. You want to know why your prayers feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling? Why breakthrough seems to slip through your fingers just when you're about to grasp it? Because you're trying to negotiate with infinity. You're trying to put the creator of time on your timeline. But God's Spirit won't always strive with your resistance. There comes a moment, and only heaven knows when, where divine patience reaches its limit, where the door that's been held open by pure grace finally closes, where the voice that's been calling your name grows silent. And here's the most terrifying part. You won't know it's happening until it's already happened. Remember the parable of the 10 virgins? 5 were wise, 5 were foolish, but they all had one thing in common. They all fell asleep, waiting. The difference was that the wise ones were prepared when the bridegroom came. The foolish ones thought they had time to get ready. Matthew 25:10 records their tragedy. While they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. The door was shut. 3 words that should echo in the soul of every person who thinks they can delay divine calling indefinitely. You see, chosen one, you're not just delaying your own destiny when you say later. You're delaying breakthrough for people whose lives are connected to your obedience. There are souls waiting for the word you're supposed to speak. There are prayers that won't be answered until you step into your assignment. There are miracles on hold because you're holding back. Your later isn't just costing you, it's costing the kingdom. So let me ask you one final question, and I want you to answer it with brutal honesty. If you knew with absolute certainty that you only had 24 hours left to respond to God's call on your life, would you still choose later? The weight you feel in your chest right now, that's not fear. That's the Holy Spirit pressing against your spirit, urging you to recognize that this moment, this very moment, might be your last clear invitation. If you've waited too long but you feel the urgency burning in your soul right now, if something inside you is screaming that this is your moment, say, not one more delay. Because, beloved, the sound of that door closing is a sound you never want to hear. But there's still time. The question is, what will you do with the time you have left? Look at yourself right now. Really look, not at what the mirror shows, but at what your spirit carries. Something profound has been happening inside you, hasn't it? Something you can't quite name, but you feel it stirring in the quiet moments between sleep and waking. You didn't just survive the last season of your life. You awakened, and the enemy is terrified because he knows what you're beginning to remember. Listen to me carefully. That restlessness you've been feeling, that divine discontent that won't let you settle, that's not depression, that's not anxiety. That's your spiritual DNA activating. You're remembering who you were before the world told you who you should be. The Spirit Himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Romans 8:16. Feel that. Let it sink into the deepest part of your soul. That witness inside you isn't imagination. It's recognition. Heaven recognizing heaven. You know what's been happening to you these past months? You've been shedding skins that were never yours to begin with. The false identities, the people-pleasing masks, the survival mechanisms that once protected you but now suffocate the giant inside you. And here's what will shock you to your core. Every tear you've cried, every sleepless night you've endured, every moment you felt like you were breaking apart, none of it was breakdown. It was breakthrough. The fire didn't burn you, it branded you. You carry the mark now, the holy fire that separates the chosen from the comfortable. And once you've been branded by divine purpose, you can never go back to living small. But let me tell you something that will change everything. Your sensitivity. That thing the world called weakness, that trait that made you feel too much, care too deeply, hurt too easily, that's not your flaw. That's your prophetic DNA. You were born with antennas tuned to frequencies others can't even detect. While they're picking up static, you're receiving divine transmissions. While they're numb to the spiritual realm, you're feeling the very heartbeat of God. Do you understand what this means? Every time someone told you to toughen up, they were asking you to disconnect from your greatest gift. Every time you were told you were too emotional, they were trying to silence the very voice of heaven flowing through you. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Ephesians 2:10. Handiwork, not mass production, custom design, handcrafted by the Creator of the universe for a purpose so specific, so essential, that He wove it into the fabric of your being before you drew your first breath. And now you're remembering. That's why you can't stand superficial conversations anymore. That's why small talk feels like spiritual suffocation. That's why you crave depth, meaning, authentic connection. Your soul is rejecting everything that isn't aligned with your divine frequency. You've been wondering why certain people have been pulling away from you lately, haven't you? Why some relationships that once felt comfortable now feel draining. Here's the truth that will set you free. As you rise into your true identity, some people become allergic to your presence. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because light exposes darkness, truth reveals deception, and authentic power makes counterfeit authority nervous. You're not losing people, you're losing the wrong people, and making room for the right ones. But here's where it gets deeper. That ache in your chest when you see injustice, that rage that burns when you witness someone being mistreated, that's not just human compassion. That's the heart of God beating inside your chest. You're feeling what He feels, seeing what He sees. And that terrifies the kingdom of darkness, because they know what happens when a chosen one fully awakens to their identity. They know that one awakened soul can shift entire atmospheres. One person walking in their divine design can break generational curses. One voice speaking truth can shatter decades of deception. That's why the resistance has been so intense. That's why the attacks on your mind, your peace, your relationships have been relentless. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on civilians. He reserves his heaviest artillery for the generals. And you, beloved, are not just a soldier in this army. You're commissioned leadership. The memories are flooding back now, aren't they? Not memories of this life, but memories of purpose. Glimpses of who you were in the heart of God before time began. Echoes of the conversations that took place in eternity before you were sent here on assignment. You're remembering the weight of what you carry, the responsibility that comes with your calling, the reason why your life has never quite fit the normal patterns. And as these memories surface, as this recognition grows stronger, you're feeling something you haven't felt in years. Hope. Not wishful thinking, not optimistic fantasy, but bone-deep, soul-shaking, mountain-moving hope. Because you're finally understanding. You weren't broken by your experiences, you were forged by them. Every rejection taught you to seek approval from heaven instead of earth. Every betrayal showed you who could be trusted with your heart. Every disappointment refined your ability to discern between God's voice and human opinion. The fire didn't burn you, it branded you with holy purpose. So I'm asking you right now, in this sacred moment, are you ready to stop apologizing for the intensity of your calling? Are you ready to embrace the weight of what heaven has placed inside you? If you know now, if every word I've spoken has awakened something ancient in your spirit, if you can feel the recognition burning in your chest like holy fire, then speak it out loud. Let heaven hear your declaration. Say it, I am divine design, because the sleeping giant inside you is about to rise. Beloved, listen to me with every fiber of your being. What I'm about to tell you will either awaken something dormant in your soul, or it will pass through you like sand through fingers. But either way, after these next few minutes, you will never be able to say you didn't know. Right now, this very second, there are spiritual warehouses in the heavenly realm bursting with provision that has your name written on it, not metaphorically, literally. For decades, while you've been walking through valleys, questioning your worth, wondering if God sees your tears, He has been storing up blessing after blessing, breakthrough after breakthrough, waiting for one thing: your complete surrender. But here's what will shake you to your core. Every day you hesitate, every moment you negotiate with God instead of obeying Him, those storehouses remain locked. Not because He's withholding from you, but because partial obedience cannot access total provision. Do you hear me? The God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills has been waiting for you to stop playing small. And it shall come to pass in the last days, says God, that I will pour out of my spirit on all flesh. Acts 2:17. This isn't future tense anymore, chosen one. This is happening now. The Spirit is moving. The question is, are you moving with Him? Let me tell you something that will pierce through every excuse you've been harboring. That small step. He's been asking you to take the one you keep putting off because it doesn't seem significant enough. That step is the key to everything. David didn't defeat Goliath with a sword forged in a palace. He defeated him with a smooth stone from a brook. 5 smooth stones. Small, simple, available. What's your stone? Is it forgiveness you've been withholding? Is it a conversation you've been avoiding? Is it generosity He's been stirring in your heart that you've been resisting? Is it a word of encouragement someone desperately needs to hear from your lips? The enemy has convinced you that your obedience has to be grand to matter. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. God's kingdom operates on the principle of the mustard seed. If you have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, "Move from here to there," and it will move. Matthew 17:20. Your next step, that one small act of obedience, will create a ripple effect that reaches into realms you cannot see. When you finally say yes, completely, fully, without reservation, something breaks in the spirit realm. Generational curses that have stalked your bloodline for decades snap like brittle twigs. Territories that have been under spiritual siege begin to shift. Atmospheres change. Your children who have been walking in darkness will suddenly encounter divine appointments. Your grandchildren will inherit a blessing they never had to fight for because you fought the battle in the spirit realm. Your very neighborhood will begin to experience unexplained peace because a chosen one decided to stop negotiating and start obeying. Do you understand the weight of this moment? You are not just making a decision for yourself. You are making a decision that will echo through generations you will never meet. Your obedience today becomes their inheritance tomorrow. But I need you to understand something that might terrify you. This window will not remain open forever. The messengers that have been assigned to your breakthrough, they are at the door right now. Not figuratively. They are standing in the spiritual realm with scrolls in their hands, with keys to unlock what has been sealed, with authority to move mountains that have blocked your path. But they cannot move until you move. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Revelation 3:20. How long has He been knocking? How many times have you heard the gentle rap of His knuckles against the door of your heart and said, "Just a little longer, Lord, when I'm ready, when it's convenient, when I feel stronger"? Tonight could be the last night He knocks. Heaven is not looking for your emotion. Heaven is not moved by your tears of regret. Heaven is not impressed by your good intentions. Heaven is waiting on your motion, your movement, your action. The Israelites stood at the edge of the Red Sea for hours, crying out to God, begging for deliverance. But the sea didn't part until Moses stretched out his hand. It didn't part until they moved toward the water. Faith without works is dead. James 2:26. Get up from where you're sitting. I'm serious. Get up, pray out loud. Speak into the atmosphere around you. Give something you've been hoarding. Call someone you've been avoiding. Write that letter. Make that apology. Take that step. The God who parted the Red Sea, who made the sun stand still, who raised the dead, is waiting for you to stretch out your hand. He's waiting for you to walk toward the water. Every second you delay, spiritual momentum slips away. Every moment you spend in indecision, the enemy gains ground. Every day you postpone your obedience, someone who needs your yes continues to wait in darkness. The messengers are at the door, and they will not wait again. If your soul is done negotiating, if you're tired of living beneath your calling, if you're ready to step into everything God has prepared for you, write "I say yes" fully and completely in the comments right now. But know this, once you say yes, there's no going back. Once you step into your destiny, the comfortable prison you've been living in will no longer feel like home. Are you ready for everything to change?